There is one thing that most writers are not giving their characters that would differentiate all of the work that they are doing from all of the other authors that are working in their space or in their genre, and would also remove some of the hardest and most exhausting work from the writing process completely. It is not a plot device. It is not a structural technique. You're not going to find it in Save the Cat or any other structural framework that is being taught out there. Almost nobody talks about it this way. What I'm going to show you in this video today is how one specific decision made one time before you get into a single scene is going to tell you what your character is going to do next in any situation that they encounter, what they say, what they refuse to say, what they reach for when they need to make a really tough decision, what they are constitutionally incapable of doing, even if it would help them, and how that same decision makes the story feel like it could only have come from you. I'm going to give you 3 examples, and by the end of this video, you are going to be able to see why this is the closest thing to a legitimate cheat code that the craft has to offer. Most writers, when they build a character, they start in the past. They start with what happened to them. This is the wound. This is the backstory. This is the formative moments of their life that explain why they are the way that they are. I say this in all of my videos. I absolutely agree that that work matters, but this is why it is a problem for what we are talking about. Backstory explains a character. It doesn't tell us how it drives them. It doesn't tell us how they process the world in this scene under this specific pressure. What actually drives a character, what makes their behavior feel inevitable instead of imposed or assigned or forced on them by the writer, is a belief system. And do not roll your eyes. Just hang with me for 1 second and you will see how powerful this can be. This is a core operating system that has been running so long, they don't even know that it's there anymore. This is something that controls how they pursue what they want, what they are willing to do or incapable of doing to get it. And here's what the belief does that the backstory cannot. It makes decisions for you. If your character is in a scene and you don't know what they're going to do next, the belief will tell you. When you are not sure what they would say, the belief will tell you. When you need to know how your character is going to respond to an offer of help or a moment of vulnerability or a threat to their sense of identity, the belief tells you that automatically. That is the burden that the belief removes, this constant calculation of trying to figure out what this character is going to do. The belief handles all of that. You just have to follow it and stay loyal to it. And because every character you create with a belief can only behave in the ways that that belief allows them to behave, the story that emerges from that is already distinct because you were specific. Let me show you exactly what I mean. In our first example, we will use the belief system, if I show weakness, I will be taken advantage of. That produces a character that learned early on, probably from something very painful, that showing vulnerability of any kind is not safe. They think that the moment you show where you are soft, that is the exact spot that someone is going to press. So they built a life around not being soft anywhere someone can see it. Here's what that looks like on the surface before we actually get into the story. They deflect personal questions. They don't do this rudely, but they do it very skillfully. They have to refuse help when it is offered to them. They are loyal to that belief system because admitting that they need help is showing a person the exact place where they can be exposed. When talking about themselves, they only share partial truths. Not enough to be known, just enough to keep the conversation going. And they test people, probably without even knowing that they are testing. Now, all we are going to do to create a story is that we are going to give this character a very simple want. She wants to get her mother out of the assisted living facility that she lives in so that she can be in a better one. That's the want. It is very simple. It is very specific. It is relatable. Anyone can understand that want, but it requires something of her that she has spent her entire life avoiding. She needs help. Let's say she applies for a hardship grant through a local nonprofit. The grant exists for this exact situation, but the application requires a very personal statement. Maybe it requires a detailed account of her financial situation or her mother's condition or the numerous ways that her family has been affected by this. She has to ask for help in writing, on record, for other people to see. So let's say that she starts that application 3 times and every time she just exits out of it. But we'll say on the 4th attempt, maybe she finally completes it, but she has edited it so heavily. She has stripped it of so much specific and personal detail. She has removed so much of the personal touch that it doesn't read like a hardship request. It just reads like a business plan. She can't bring herself to write the sentences that would actually move somebody. The ones that are true, those sentences that cost her something to say. This application is specifically asking her to show weakness and she simply cannot do it. But we will say that she submits it anyway, and the application is rejected. The rejection states that it lacked sufficient documentation of personal emotional hardship. She got exactly what her belief produced. She asked for help in a way that made it impossible to receive help. Now she has to tell her mother that help is not coming. And she's not going to explain why. Because explaining why requires her to admit that the system didn't fail her. That's not why this application was rejected. She just couldn't write the truth about herself on paper. And we can even say that a colleague hears about her situation and offers to connect her directly to someone at the nonprofit. This is just an introduction, a conversation, someone to get her some FaceTime so that she could talk about this. And now the belief has an even harder question to answer. Can she sit across from a stranger and tell the true thing? Can she ask for help in a way that actually sounds like asking? The belief says no, but the want that she has tells her she has no other options. From here, the cycle tightens because every attempt that she makes to get help for her mother is constrained and pressured by her belief system that prevents her from being vulnerable to get those things. These are the conversations that she can't have. These are the relationships that she can't form because being vulnerable is how you connect with people. And the writer never had to manufacture any of that. The belief generated all of that for you. We'll do a second example. For this one, we'll use the belief that if I don't keep the peace, everything will explode. This one is more subtle, and in some ways it is more dangerous because from the outside, this character looks like the kindest person you know. They smooth over tension before it fully forms. They agree outwardly while disagreeing internally. And they apologize for things that aren't their fault because that apology solves the discomfort that they are feeling inside. The people around them experience someone who is incredibly easy to be around. They experience this person as very warm, very accommodating. This is someone who makes every gathering feel easily manageable. But what they are actually experiencing is someone who is very terrified. They are terrified of conflict and what that conflict produces. In their operating system, disagreements or conflict that is left unresolved turns and escalates into something that is irreparable. They learned this somewhere very early on in life, and now every room that they are in is a threat of temperature that is rising. Now, all that we are going to do, the same thing we did in the first example, is we are going to give this character a very simple want. He wants to make partner at the firm that he's been at for 11 years. That is the want. Very easy, very relatable. Everyone loves a good promotion. Everything they have done, the late nights, the calls with customers on the weekends, all of that has built up to this moment. He has earned it. And he knows that he has earned it. But in a senior partners meeting, a colleague introduces a project or an idea that our character knows is horribly flawed. And we're not just talking slightly flawed. This is fundamentally flawed. It is going to lead to a crisis. Our character knows this. They have the information to prove it, and they have the standing to say it. But they are watching the room, nodding their heads to the idea, warming up to it. They are watching management, asking follow-up questions with interest and curiosity. Our character clears their throat. They are about to speak and reveal this horribly, fundamentally flawed idea is a horrible way to go. And then he reads the room. The enthusiasm, the people leaning forward, the momentum that is building behind this idea. And instead of disagreeing, he says something that supports the idea. This is just a gentle addition that sends that idea past the finish line. The belief just made the decision for him. It chose stability over the truth. That is the decision it will always make. And we will say that that strategy moves forward. And 3 months later, it explodes exactly the way that our character knew it would. Client relationships are fractured. Business has lost profit, and management is looking for answers. And now his colleague, the one who introduced that idea, is pointing to that meeting where nobody raised the concerns. They are pointing right to our character who supported, who stood up and gave their support to this idea. The belief that was supposed to protect this character's surroundings from exploding is now the exact thing that is causing a career crisis for them. And we'll say the managing partner calls our character in for a private meeting. They ask our character directly, did you have any reservations about this project? And this is the moment. This is where he can say the truth, where he was about to say something but stayed quiet. Or he can smooth it over one more time. He can lower the temperature in that room. The belief is already producing an answer for him. From here on in the story, every conversation is pivoting on what he says in this room. If he tells the truth, he has to account for why he stayed silent. If he smooths it over, he is just building towards another crisis. And the writer never had to figure out what this character was going to do. The belief system informed every possible way forward that this character was going to take. We'll do one more example. For this one, we will use the belief that if I rely on others, I will be disappointed. That belief produces a character who learns that in any situation they are in, they can only ever rely on themselves. They're not arrogant, but life has let them down enough times that self-reliance just seems like the only logical conclusion. They avoid asking for help, even when the cost of help is so horribly insignificant. They do everything themselves, even if it makes them less effective. They keep emotional distance from people who have even proved that they are reliable because this person knows that disappointment is on the other side of that reliance. Depending on someone else, creates a point of failure that they cannot control. Now we are going to do the same thing that we did in the other two examples. We are going to give this character a very simple want. She wants to open her own restaurant. She's been a line cook for 12 years. She knows what people want. She knows how to cook. She knows how to get this done. The want is real. And for her, it's been real for a very long time. But opening a restaurant requires capital that she doesn't have, which means investors, which means people whose decisions she cannot control, outcomes that she cannot reliably count on. We'll say she gets an introduction to a group of investors who work on startup restaurants. These are people who have done this hundreds and thousands of times. They have the capital and they have the appetite to give it to someone who knows what they are doing. She prepares for this meeting meticulously because she is self-reliant and that is her superpower. If she knows enough, she doesn't need anybody's help to get this done. But in the meeting, the lead investor asks her 1 year from now, what is the greatest operational challenge you face and what do you need from this group to navigate it? It is an open door. They are telling her, we want to be useful to you. They understand exactly why restaurants fail and they are asking her, how can we help prevent that from happening? And she tells them, she's got it covered. She outlines her contingency plans and demonstrates that she does not need them in that way. She makes the case very convincingly that beyond the capital that they are providing her, she doesn't need anything else from them. That belief just told a group of investors, I don't want your help, I just want your money. And they pass. The feedback that she gets tells her that, yes, you look like you know exactly what you're doing, but we don't know what role we are going to play. We want to be a support system. We don't want to be just signing checks. She got exactly what her belief produced. She asked for an investment in such a way that made partnership feel unnecessary, and that group was only looking to provide a partnership. Now she's back to the beginning. The capital gap is still the same, the want is still the same, and the belief is still running that same calculation that it always runs. If she needs them, they can fail her. And we'll say that a friend, this is someone that she's known for years. They've worked alongside her. They know how capable she is. They know how she works. They offer to co-sign a small business loan for her. This is a real solution and it is available to her. It requires trusting one person versus a group of people, but it also requires admitting to this person that she's known for years that she needs them. The belief has a harder time reconciling this because it tells her that a group of strangers failing her, that is expected. But someone who knows her, someone choosing not to come through for her, this is exactly the outcome that the belief has been dug in so hard to prevent. So every funding conversation between her and him will operate through the same belief, but under more and more pressure. And underneath all of it, the growing possibility that this want, that the restaurant, this thing that she has worked so hard for, will remain exactly where it is because the belief will make it impossible to reach. The writer never had to invent any of those obstacles. The belief system built them automatically, but it built them in ways that are specific and inevitable to this internal logic. That's what a belief does. I gave you 3 different characters with 3 different beliefs that produced 3 completely different stories. And in every case, the writer didn't have to invent conflict or sit there and wonder what this character is going to do next. The writer didn't have to invent obstacles or engineer misunderstandings or push this character to a very specific plot point. The belief handled all of that for you. When a character has a specific belief that is constrained under a specific internal logic, the story generates itself. The decisions are automatic. The consequences are inevitable. The pressure compounds on its own because every move that our character can make is filtered through a very specific logic system. That is what makes a story stand out, not a more original premise, just a specific psychology running underneath every scene. That is what makes this character's version of the story so completely differentiated from every other story out there. And that is what removes that burden of work from the writer. The belief answers that question before you've even had a chance to ask if I need a more dramatic plot. This is the kind of craft conversation that you get excited about and you feel like it is useful to you. The work that goes on underneath the story, like this is the scaffolding that is holding it together. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of my other videos. If this is the kind of craft conversation that you find useful and you find resonates with you, this is the exact kind of thing that my workbook, Trauma as Engine, is designed to do. It is designed to pull these belief systems from your own psychology, from your own lived experience, and it uses them to inform your conflict, your dialogue, your story engine, your plot points. It removes the belief that you have learned over the course of your life, removes that from the autobiographical event that created it, and we use it to inform your story. I will leave a link to that in the description below. You don't have to build a belief or a story from scratch. You are already sitting on the most infinitely valuable story material that you can pull from. Thank you for watching.